All right, welcome. It's good to see everybody. I think this is like the fifth day in the last 25 that I've spent in Lincoln, so it's good to be back, and it's great to be back on this day in particular. It's a big day for Nebraska, and exciting day for Nebraska football. So, we went through the day. In one good way, we had no real surprises. Everybody that was supposed to sign, we thought was going to sign, they did. And we've got a pretty versatile class here, I suppose, is one way to look at it. As you recruit and as you put your plan together, one of the plans is always to get the right person and the right football talent. You got to start with that, and that's always a big part of it. Another part of that is trying to fit the needs of your football team. And going through a year with the team, you're looking at the number of players at each position and what you would like ideally as 12 linebackers, that are on your team, something like that. You're trying to hit those spots, and sometimes you don't want to do that. If it's a big number you've got to get to, you don't necessarily want to do all of it in 1 year with all those kids in the same class. So like at linebacker, we got 3 more guys, and we still want to build that number up, and we're getting closer to it. So we're excited about that. We graduated more starters in the offensive line than any other position, so we're going to, we got 4 offensive linemen. That's a good deal. We've got some receivers that are going to continue to grow and help us, so we just about hit all the positions that way. We're getting closer to having the right number at each position as we go along, and we feel like we got good players and the right people for this university and this state. So it's exciting. We're good. We've got another little news you may have already heard. Lane Hovey is going to transfer to Montana. I hate to lose Lane. Wonderful, great young man, a really good football player, and is making a decision, for him to find more opportunity to play. He play for us and get in the games, but maybe looking for a little more opportunity to play. And I get that totally, but like I say, we just wish him the best because he's a great, great young man, and he'll always be a Nebraska football alum. He'll be connected with us. Joe Keels is found to play. He's got a 6th year. He's going to play at Eastern Michigan. Trey Mosley is transferred to Central Arkansas. I think you already know that. Adrian Talon has left the program. We think he's going to end up in a junior college at this time. And then we've got our class. So you guys want to start asking questions? I think it's a good time.
Mike, can you talk about Patrick O'Brien? What impressed you about him as a quarterback and having him enroll early here at Nebraska?
Well, the first thing that impressed me about Patrick O'Brien was seeing him throw the ball on tape. I think in general. The first thing you're drawn to is talent, and so we had some good video on him last spring sometime, and we liked it. So when we were able to go out and go through the evaluation time during the spring, that was one of Danny Langsdorff's first stops. Because we've kind of had a general rule through the years, personal rule, that we will not offer a quarterback until we see him throw live. And so the video was intriguing, watching him throw. And then Danny kind of confirmed what we saw. We made an offer. We got a pretty early commitment. We're excited about that. The other thing that is very exciting about it, because talent is one thing, production is another. And this guy has been productive. And he's taken a team, relatively new high school in Southern California, and helped them become a playoff team. And in doing so, he was very productive, had big games. And, the best predictor of production is past production. So we like that in players. We like the fact that Darion Grimm, scored 34 touchdowns and caught a bunch of passes for a lot of yards. That's a good sign. Production is a good thing. That's what we saw in Patrick.
Mike, what do you like about your offensive line class, the 4 guys you're bringing in at that key position?
I like the number and I like the talent. You know, I think that you know, as you look at guys, we probably have 3 interior guys, centers and guards, and then Farniok is a tackle. And you know, so I think that gives us some versatility there. I like I think there's some toughness in that group. I think that there's talent in that group, and I like the number that we got. So that was a good job by our staff to get them.
What was the key in keeping guys like Brokoff and Raritan? They've been in the class, or they've been committed so long.
Yeah.
Keeping that going for that period of time.
Well, you know, those guys that have been committed for a while, committed before we got here. You know, the one thing that we did with them is confirm Nebraska's commitment to them, and then you know, from there it wasn't very hard. You know, I think that you know, Nebraska draws people for whatever reason, and for John Reardon, you know, it's a legacy deal. You know, his dad had a tremendous experience here. You know, and so I can imagine growing up in that house, it was pretty easy to like Nebraska and to envision that possibility for John. So the other thing I'll say about those 2 guys, Brian and John, is that we appreciate that loyalty to their commitment because, you know, through that time, they get approached a bunch of different ways as time goes by, and for them to stick with what they told us they were going to do is a big deal. It says a lot about them, so we appreciate that.
You got all 4 of those guys from inside the 500-mile radius.
Yeah.
9 of the 21 players overall.
Yeah.
How do you feel like you did within that radius? I know you want to try to sign half in that radius. How do you feel like you did? What are some of maybe, you know, what are some things you might tweak because of misses that you had in that radius? And, you know, how do you think you'll do going forward?
Yeah, Sam, I think that is a real worthwhile topic for us as far as we learn more about what we're going to do and what that radius means. I think that radius is a real thing, you know, and I think what we have to do now, like today, going forward, is really hit this thing hard and be able to get these guys here. I still think one of the keys is to get guys on campus early before their official visits. Get them here this spring. We have a chance to do that in this radius, and I think we were close to that 50% mark, not quite there. We had our chances with a couple more guys, and those were, you know, for me, some of the bigger disappointments, right? Because, you know, I'd like to really kind of own this part of it, and so we've got to work real hard, and we have to have the right recipe for recruiting each individual. How our life went with Matt Farniok is a good example of that, right? I mean, we had him here on an unofficial visit during recruiting time last year. Last January, he was here. He was upstairs in the stadium. I met his family, and then we had a good long year to recruit him, developing that relationship, kind of the old-fashioned way to do it, and gaining the trust and continuing to build it. And that's where we have to hit hard with the guys that are in our radius now, you know, so that we feel real comfortable about where we are. You know, when we had the last bat with Matt and his family last Wednesday in their home, you know, we had that last in-home visit, and that's what I wanted. I told him a long time ago I wanted the last bat. And so we went in there and we had a plan from the beginning, and so now with looking at it for a year and how that worked, and you know, each guy's a little bit different. They're going to probably approach it differently. Matt's plan was to take his visits and to wait it out, and he had older brothers that had been through it, so he had a lot of advice, and it was good advice, but it made everybody just kind of continue to build and make sure that covering all the bases as you go, and we ended up with the players. So, you know, that's really my vision for this radius. And there's a lot of good football players, and we found more as we went. So We just want to we want to do a hair better. And then I think it's going to be natural for us, and we have found it easy from Nebraska to go to California and go to Florida. And so we'll get our bits and pieces like that, get the right guy, and recruit him over a period of time. We're going to make a big effort starting Monday on really getting players evaluated in the beginning of the recruiting process. And probably in saying that, we got to, for next year, get even further ahead. This thing is accelerated to the point where you got to get in it fast, get the evaluations done, and pick that active group of guys that you're going to recruit, the active recruits, the guys that you've offered and you're going to recruit them. And we've got to know those names as soon as possible because those relationships are there waiting to be built so that you can get them. And that's so. We've got 20 working days, as they say, until spring practice starts. So we've got to make the most of those 20 days getting ready for next year.
Hey, Mike, follow up on Barniak.
Yeah.
That Wednesday night last week, the significance of that night in his home, did you give consideration at that time or in the hours after it, not just to the player you were getting, but also to the competition that you went against within your own conference to get him?
Yeah, I think that that was actually, that's a good thought because that was very encouraging to me. If we do this thing right, and we're at the University of Nebraska, and we treat this with the respect in this area that we should, we can do this thing. It's got to be the right process. It's got to be individualized to the right people, and that was obviously a very good get for us, considering his options and kind of the world that he has been surrounded with through his older brothers and what they've been through. They know this deal pretty well. So that made me feel good about the process. I thought Coach Kavanaugh did a great job of being persistent and consistent in his relationship with Matt and the whole family. I like that. That to me was a good picture of recruiting. And kind of like I said, some old-fashioned parts to it, but those things that kind of pay off in the end, I think that are important to people. I think that you have to have grabbers in this business. There's videos and all the stuff that kind of can grab somebody's attention, and then I think there has to be substance that follows that, and that was a good picture with that family.
Say, Coach, what's your thoughts on silent commits?
My thoughts on silent commits. I think in what I would say, right now is you better keep recruiting at that position. I kind of get the idea. I think that they're that like for instance Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar's deal was really well done. His announcement and the video. Did you guys all see that? Yeah. I think that was fun, and I think it shows how important it is to these kids. They're going to take the time with that. The hard part about it is that a lot of times, since you don't know, you have to be able to continue to recruit and have a number of options there for yourself. Because there are so many rules around this recruiting, and one of them in particular is limiting as to the number that you can actually sign. I think it's good. I don't think there should be an overabundance of over-signing, where you put a lot of people later on in limbo about what's going to happen. So I think these rules, this regulation is good, but it's also very important that you have enough flexibility yourself to get the players that you want. So you've got to, if you don't have what you feel is a real solid public commitment that is going to last, you better maintain some versatility in the numbers that you're still recruiting.
Coach, you mentioned just trying to get out in front and evaluate as much as you can over the next month or so.
Right.
Is that sort of a direct reaction to the way the class finished up? Just at the end, you guys are kind of just waiting on a lot of guys to make their decision right up to sign day. And I wonder how you find that in and if it's something you'd like to work going forward.
Well, you know, I don't know. In some cases, it will be our decision, you know, for considering how long we have to wait. You know, I actually think that there are some guys like Matt Farniok that knew what they were doing, right? And you weren't going to get a decision from him until he had been through the process that he wanted to go through, you know, and he had a plan for that. So, you know, no matter how early you get in on it, you could have gotten in, you know, earlier than we did. But we got in probably at the earliest we could because it was right when we got here that we got in on Matt. You know, they control it, and when they do, that's all right with me. You know, if you know the plan and you know how that's going to go. But the thing is that by making early evaluations and knowing what you would like to do and giving yourself enough versatility with numbers that you feel good about, it gives yourself an opportunity to then to see what that individual wants to do. A lot of guys are going to tell us early on that they want to make a commitment before their season. They want to get that decision behind them. You know, so you got to take that to heart and make a plan for that. And then there's guys that were very upfront, like Matt was, that this is what I'm going to do, how I'm going to play it, and then you deal with that way. So it's not really up to us, but we kind of have to know what it might look like and then approach it accordingly.
Hey, Mike, did your success in California and Florida, did you feel like that maybe outweighed not getting anybody from Texas? Does it matter to you?
It does matter to me. You know, I think we should get a guy from Texas. And, you know, we were talking about that today. Not that it necessarily has to work out like that. I think I love this group. We're right at the top number that we could get, so there's not much else we could do. Now, we had, as was pretty public, a surprise at the receiver, you know, deal from just a couple days ago. And that's what I was talking about earlier. What you should do in that case is have that other guy ready to go. And maybe you should have had that guy ready to go 3 weeks ago. And we had one in the Dallas area that I think we could have gotten. He ends up at a real good school, I think, but we kind of trusted this situation to be what it looked like, so we didn't do that. So we had a chance to get a guy from Texas, but we will hit that hard, and I think we should get a guy or two. You know, I'd like to keep that going in California. I don't know if we'll get 4, you know, but we'll get a couple guys there and a couple guys in Texas, and Louisiana has appeared to be now pretty darn good for us, so we're going to stay there, and Florida is the same way. So, you know, I think that it balanced out nicely for us, but yes, we want to be relevant in Texas for sure.
Mike, how did it play out at the end with David Engelhoff, and how you guys decided to come in at the kind of the last minute with that offer to him?
It was a last-minute offer to David Engelhoff, but it was not a last-minute thought. We had him in camp. We liked him. He was part of our conversation for the year. We never stepped forward with it because of our numbers, you know. And then at the end, when we were presented with a opportunity, we had a long talk. We revisited it, you know, on video and liked it. And we actually, you know, here's a local guy that is a really good football player that performed well in camp. He ran in the 4.5s in the 40 for a big guy. We never forgot that. So he was always part of a conversation. And so with an opportunity at the end, we thought this was a really smart thing to do. And it's another good example of what just an opportunity at a camp can do for a young man, because had we not seen him in person like that, we may not have revisited it like we did, but we liked what we saw, and we never forgot it. We had an opportunity at the end, and we used that opportunity to, I think, get a good football player.
Hey, Mike, is there one trait, maybe not through all these guys, but maybe one trait that kind of permeates through most of them, that characteristic-wise, you know, toughness, you know, football players, one thing that pops in your head?
Well, I think that in the football realm of it, I think we've got production here, good football players with production, and yes, I think that you know, if you looked at that offensive line, and we're going to make a general statement about this would be a tough group. This will be a physical group of kids. The other thing that I like that I think is general is these guys and I love this in recruiting, and you can do this over a period of time. I think that they get Nebraska. This is a great place. We give them a combination. I'll give my recruiting pitch to you guys. We can give them a combination of things that almost nobody can match in terms of the life skills they're going to get here, the academic support, and the football part of it. You know, the experience in football here. The combination here, I think, is awesome, and I think these guys get it. I think that's why a guy like Lamar Jackson that makes a visit during the season and sees a game with all the opportunities he had out there, he gets it. He knew what he saw here, he felt it, and he's excited to live it. So I think that's what this group is about. I think Quayshawn Alexander from New Jersey is the same way. I think he came here to our camp. He loved the place. He loved the people that were here. Then he got to see a game. I think that he was, you know, he really had a great feel for it. It was fun talking to him about Nebraska. So I think in general I would say that's what this group is about.
Talk about Lamar Jackson. Here's a guy that was, according to the recruiting services, the top-rated player. Is he a guy that could possibly come in here and contribute right away?
Physically, Lamar is ready, you know, and you know, just so you know, my general kind of bit of advice to all these guys is come here ready to play. Get yourself ready to compete, to play in the games. Don't come ready to redshirt. You know, get yourself ready to go, and let's see where it takes us. Now, see a guy like Lamar with his size right now and his development, you know, he's got that opportunity. A guy like Dedrick Young, right? He steps in physically. He walked in the door last year. He looks the part. He's physically ready to go. Some guys need a little more development. Some guys just need to practice more. They need to learn more. And that's where it'll, you know, that's kind of the separator for those guys that are really physically ready to go when they come into fall camp. If they can grasp what we're doing and then show the performance on the field in practice, then they've got that shot to move in. As I've told you before, our deal on freshmen is if we're not going to redshirt them, then they are playing in the games. You will see them playing. They're not going to go in and mop up sometime during the season, and that's going to be what they do. You know, if we're not redshirting them, we're going to make sure they get a lot of value in that year. So those are big decisions by us in fall camp, and you know, we had quite a few freshmen play a year ago, and hopefully that makes us stronger for this year. I think for sure that it will, but those are big decisions we have to make in camp with this group.
Your pass defense struggled last year. Wasn't what you wanted to be. You have 5 defensive backs if you include Doman in this class. First, how good of a group is that as a quintet? And second, how can this class and last year's class, which had 4 guys in it, how can they help reshape and rebuild the way you guys play pass defense?
Well, Sam, that's well said, and one of the key ingredients to us getting better, we've got to rise up in the total defensive numbers for sure all over the place. And one of the reasons is we did not play good pass defense. Now, we all know that pass defense involved everybody on the defense, whether it's a guy covering a guy or a guy trying to rush the passer. So all that has to get better as we go. But obviously with these last 2 groups, we're expecting talent-wise to just pick up the competition, that every part of this should be real. We certainly expect those guys like Eric Lee and Avery Anderson that redshirted to compete hard this spring in their entry into playing with us. And we'll see who we get out of this group. I think there's a good combination of speed, playmaking, physical football players in this group that somebody may surface right away. I hesitate to say who that might be. We've already talked about Lamar being physically ready. You know, this JoJo Doman is a bullet now. He's an interesting guy. And I would imagine when he steps in, he's a playmaker. He's all over the field making plays, and so we'll see what he can do. Boodle's got tremendous speed. You know, maybe he needs a little bit more development as a DB, but he's got some of those physical ingredients that make him an interesting guy right away. See if he can transfer it right away. Tony Butler has really been a productive, really good football player with nice size too. So we'll see if anybody breaks in, but certainly our goal is to increase the talent level there and to build it up over the years.
Mike, no junior college guys in this year's class, and there's none on the roster now as far as scholarship goes.
Yeah.
What's your approach on that going forward on JUCO?
Very selective. You know, we went after a couple junior college guys, not many, because when we go through the process, we're not just going to go out there and shoot for a whole bunch of different guys. We're fairly selective as to the guys we went after. We did not get them. And in general, in the long-term deal, you know, when we look at junior college guys, we're looking for a guy that can help us immediately. So it's very selective. Like I was going to say, in general, what we'd like to do is bring a young guy in and develop him and get him ready, and then build that up year to year to year, so we have him longer. and that would be philosophically what we do. Now, that does not mean we're not going to look again at what this season looks like and where we might need help, and maybe pinpoint another guy or two that we're going to go after in JC.
You mentioned DiCaprio Boodle. Did you get what you had hoped out of those satellite camps this year, and what's the approach with those going forward, I guess?
Great point. DiCaprio was at a satellite camp. That's where we noticed that speed. Then we found out more about him, liked him, offered him, went through the process, signed him. And it was, again, the presentation of an opportunity. That's why, you know, I told you guys a long time ago, that's why I'm kind of still continue to be in favor of satellite camps. That's why I like our camps on campus. I think that kids can learn, but kids can also gain possibly an opportunity to play someplace that they never envisioned, and that's what happened with him. So we're going to, as long as we can continue to do it, we're going to do it again. We actually were not as productive in our satellite camps as I thought we might be. However, what is not seen in this group is that we did see some underclassmen that are still out there that we have already seen, so that will help us hopefully evaluate and recruit them for next year.
How do you feel like you filled your need for pass rushers?
You know, I think that we might have found it in a linebacker here. We did not. We just signed a couple of defensive linemen, and I think those two guys in that way are going to be good candidates to be that guy, or, you know, provide that for us. Obviously, we think that's a possibility there. I think two really good football players with production. But in saying that also, you know, in the versatility that you have on defense these days with third down, three-man front, linebacker blitzes, Quayshawn Alexander might be a good example of a guy that in situational deals gives you the pass rush you want on third down. So, you know, I think that besides the thinking of just a defensive end being that guy, it could be another guy too.
What sticks out to you about this group of walk-ons?
The walk-ons? You know, again, first of all, I've been really impressed through the year of the guys in our program that have walked on, what they bring to this program in a lot of different ways, and the stories that have come up where, you know, a guy like Brandon Riley, I think, leads the league in yards per catch as a former walk-on player that has now earned a scholarship and is being productive. So, you know, I always I love those stories, and I think that this group, again, is a group that was selected, you know, to be here based on their talent and their production from high school. So now I just met with them over the weekend, and now they have the opportunity to see what they can do with it. And once they enter in, they're just on the team, so we'll see where they can go.
Do you know where that number will be ultimately, the number of walk-ons?
Well, we're probably looking in that 50 range again. You know, we're probably looking by the time we get to the fall, and right in that 130 to 135 total players. So that's about where we were this year, probably what we're going to maintain, Steve.
Are you ready to play right away? Is that more difficult with offensive linemen?
Offensive linemen, historically for us, for me, have been probably the least likely to play right away. Now, we have had guys do that, you know, but that combination of the number of things that they have to learn and also coupled with what they have to be physically, makes it harder for offensive linemen in general. But we'll see. You know, a guy like Farniok, physically, when he walked in, you would not know he's going to be just walking out of high school, right? So physically, he's got a chance to be that guy. Now, how he actually comes in and performs, and with all the stuff he has to learn and the adjustments they make and everything that goes with it, that's another part that he's going to have to prove in fall camp.
What, if anything, would you change or tweak for next year about in-state recruiting?
Yeah.
We're talking to high school coaches in the state, talking to high school prospects, since I know there were a couple that you offered who chose to go also.
Right. Well, I don't like that. You know, I mean, I think that their reasons were great and all that, and they're individual and personal. But like I told you before, we want to get all these guys in Nebraska, so we will revisit that. Again, early identification of those guys is going to be a big factor. And then the right building of the individual relationships will be a key there, Sam. You know, that's we have already revisited those guys that you're talking about. And like I said, they're personal disappointment to me. But, you know, what we can do with it now is try to find out ways to make sure that does not happen again.
Like you alluded to Lamar Jackson's video. How do you like those announcement videos?
Well, it's yeah, I like them. You know, I like them when they put the right hat on at the end. That's my favorite one. And I guess, you know, things have changed so much, right? And the opportunity to do stuff like that. And like I said, when I was looking at that, you know, I was just thinking about the fact that this is an important time for this guy, and in this world today, they're able to do this stuff, and they get it, and so, you know, that he would care that much to spend time with it is kind of just a culmination of everything he's been through for a couple of years, because he's been one of those guys that everybody knew about for a while. So you know, I think that it's just kind of the sign of our times, and I'm not going to overanalyze it. It looked to me like it was fun doing it for him, and like I said, I liked the result at the end.
How much did you follow the Harbaugh stuff?
I did. You know, you can't help but follow Jim a little bit and pay attention to it. And
What was your favorite antic, and what do you think overall?
well, you know, I think that I don't know which one would maybe was my. If I didn't rank them, Dirk. I don't really look at it as a favorite thing. I just kind of paid attention to it. It was, but you know, for sure, what it is, again, it's kind of the sign of the time of you got to grab them. And I think in the end, however, it still comes down to the substance of what you're trying to do. But I think that there's some stuff there that's interesting, makes everybody think a little bit.
Do you feel, seriously,
Yeah.
Do you feel some, pressure is not the right word, but, you know, when you see stuff like that, do you feel like you have to spice it up, that you have to add style to your substance?
Well, you know, I think that frankly, we talk about a lot of different things. I think we've got guys down in our offices that are forward-thinking. Our stuff that comes out from our athletic department, from our football program. I think that there's lots of good stuff coming out there, and I think that they're thinking about that stuff and how to basically get those attention grabbers going and having some fun with having people be able to follow us. I like that. Now, when it comes to stuff maybe that you're talking about personally, I think it still comes down to, you know, whatever might be you. You know, I think they're you know, for some guys to do some stuff, you know, like I heard about this one guy trying to copy what Jim did with staying overnight somewhere. You know, with all of a sudden, that is that real for that guy? Is it become, you know, is it just a copycat? You know, you got to probably be original with it. But I think in the end, once you get past all that part of it, that's what I said that I liked. These guys got why they're coming to Nebraska. So eventually, after you get past all that, this is an important decision that involves real stuff, and it involves, somebody's child that has to be at the right exact place for them. So once you get past all those attention grabbers and all that stuff, which I think are very important, don't get me wrong, and yes, it does make us think about what we can do better and differently, and do some stuff that's fun and will grab somebody. But at the same time, when you get past that, you've got to have the real stuff. Otherwise, what do you really have?
Coach, is there a difference between?
Yeah, oh, yeah. If I could, I would go.
Is there a difference in the way you guys interact with or build relationships with guys who have a little bit more notoriety? I mean, at Oregon State, a lot of the recruits that you had, they just weren't as highly regarded in terms of.
Yeah.
They didn't get a lot of as much attention as the guys who are going after now. Bigger programs in pursuit of them, obviously more ratings from recruiting services.
Right.
So do you have to adjust how you interact with those guys?
Well,
how you pursue them? What do you do?
Do we have to adjust? I think that I think in the initial thing, just what I talked about, in order to get somebody that is going to be a national recruit, and you can take again, Lamar or Farniok, these guys. I think that you've got to get something that kind of gets a hook in there. But then I have found it, these guys, even though they have a lot of notoriety and they are being recruited by a lot of different people, I think that the place and the people, the things that they're considering, come down to some real common denominators about finally making a choice. Because that if it's the wrong place, all the flash in the world and all the gimmicks in the world, they fade away fast. So they're going to be searching for some of the same things that we've always talked about, and that's substance in the program and the right fit of the university for them and the right place. So, eventually when you get down to that, it becomes a very similar message. We're coming from a different place, and obviously a place with different kinds of strengths that we're going to, be able to talk about with the prospect. But it's not going to change for us as once we get in there. We got a lot of good things to talk about that are really, really important to their future. So that's what we're going to focus on, and that part of it won't change.
Mike, you talked about
last year when you were here, you were sicker than a dog. Spinning, and you were about 8 weeks.
Yeah.
How much did this year help in terms of just knowing the product and what you're selling?
Well, that's been comfortable that way, and we're not done learning, right? Because we're learning about our process. We're already talking. We've already tweaked it starting on Monday. What we're going to do a little bit differently, and we've already talked about some things today that we're going to do differently. So it's much more comfortable right now, having that year behind us. Now a year of football behind us. Lots of different stuff in the football season that we had to deal with, but we found out a lot about the people in our program and our team, and then we went through a whole recruiting cycle, which is very good. And then we've been here a year and found out even how much greater than we ever knew this place, and the things that are available for kids and how good it is for young people. So that's just really encouraging to me to go out there again and go get another group. And then kind of, again, we've learned and we'll tweak and we'll get back out and go again. And so, the greatest thing in the world for us in our business to establish a program, to establish the values we want, to establish football that we want is time. You just got to keep. That's why, frankly, at the last school I was at, that's why I stayed for so long, because I realized at some point in there how valuable the time is each year in the program to build what you think is important in the football part of it and in the evaluation recruiting part of it.
you already talked about the player from Norfolk. What about the one from Ashland Green with Ben Still? What did you see in him offering so early?
Love Ben, saw him in camp, explosive. He is, I think, coupled with the fact that he has really good athletic ability and explosion. He is, I think maybe the best word to use is determined now. He is a serious guy, and I think he's going to do very good things here. And he's a heck of a wrestler. Yeah.
Back to Barney for a second. How was your stint as a history teacher? What was
Well, you know, that's what I was always going to do, right? I was going to be a high school history teacher, so I stepped into this room. I did not get a lot of respect from that class. It was the end of the day, and they were ready to go, so I was trying to do my best, but you know, it's probably good that I didn't do that.
What made you want to go in there? Like, what triggered that?
It just felt like it because we were kind of waiting for. I was going to walk with the coach out the door. He said, "Hang on here, my class is going to end here in a minute, so I'll walk out with you." So I was kind of waiting there, and then we were just talking. Then I just wandered in, and I didn't really teach it. I just asked some questions. So.
What did you ask him?
Huh? Oh,
You're a history
yeah.
guy, so what did you?
Well, I asked them what they were studying, you know, and so it was Sam. It wasn't a big deal, really. They were ready for the day to be over. It was fun to be there.
Some of the guys that might miss spring ball.
Antonio Reed is going to miss spring ball. He had a knee that was scoped, and they did a repair on it. And the repair is actually going to take a little bit longer to heal than sometimes a regular meniscus does if it's just snipped a little bit. So he will miss spring practice. Off the top of my head right now, I can't think of anybody. Michael Rose-Ivy, I think that he'll be okay for spring ball. Dan, who am I missing? Anybody in spring ball? Yeah, Mick Stoltenberg. Well, I don't think he'll be ready to go, but he'll be ready for the fall. He'll work extremely hard, and we need him to get back at it. It'll be good to have him back. DeMornay, I don't think he'll be in spring ball, but I think he'll be full speed for the year.
Mike, is it free to talk about Tanner Lee and I guess why he was a fit?
Tanner, yeah. I really like this get. You know, this was a call from a friend that basically knew the family and knew the situation that was starting to unfold at Tulane, right? A new coach, new staff, with a major option football background. This guy, passer, more of a drop back mode, had been very productive. I'd actually heard about this guy from pro scouts that had been down to see him 5 months ago, not even knowing, strangely, that this thing was going to end up as a possibility of happening for Nebraska just in the last few weeks. So as this thing took place, you know, I'd already just had head knowledge of it. Then we had real knowledge of it through Keith Williams, who had been there with him, and then we had the video. And then we did not sign a guy last year, so in a way, we've got a young guy in Patrick, and we've got a kind of an intermediate guy maybe in Tanner. So he will not be eligible this year. He for sure has a year after that, and the possibility of he's going to appeal for a second year that we won't know about for a while. So he's in the middle of that. Either way, we're excited to have him. It provides us more competition in a transition period after Tommy graduates. We'll have, we think, a very good young player in Patrick. We have the guys that are currently in the program, and we've added Tanner to that picture, who has played in the games, been productive, I think is a very talented guy. And so I think our quarterback picture really, really was improved with him deciding to come. Thank you, everybody. Good to see you.